खुदा साई क्या कहते हैं? बैठ जाओ. खुदा साई. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Today's session with English-speaking people from England. Huh? The mixed society, of course, not always English, but the English-speaking session particularly. So would you kindly begin as moderator?
Yes. Today we have a combined group of various Ahmadis belonging from various countries.
Yes.
And also a very respectable guest from Japan.
Yes.
He is a visiting professor in Sweden at the moment. Originally he comes from Kobe.
Kobe.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And
you know our friend Kobayashi?
yes, Kobayashi. Yes, I know him.
Was he from Kobe?
No, I think that
Oh,
was
just
part of his name.
Kobe is a part of it. Yes. And he's a professor of
Theory of science.
Theory
of science.
Theory of science.
In Sweden.
And next?
Next is Mr. Ibrahim Noonan,
Mm-hmm.
a young Ahmadi originally from Ireland,
Yes.
permanently living here. Then Brother Jariullah, he is from Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
He was given the name Jariullah.
By me yesterday. And you said he is a new Ahmadi?
Jariullah.
No, this one,
Ibrahim Noonan
Ibrahim.
is young Ahmadi.
Young Ahmadi, yes.
Yes,
But young in shoulders and old in brain. You know? They say, grey head over green shoulders. That's what he is. Right, mashallah.
And then we have Sister Sarah, he originally is from Wales.
Yes. We have met before, haven't we? Yes.
Zahid Nepal, who is from Mauritius.
Yes.
And Mr. Abdur Rahman, who is son of Mr. Ado from Ghana.
Ado. How's your brother in Canada? Still progressing well? Alhamdulillah. Very nasty accident. He's a very brilliant boy that was. Elected president of the union, etc. In university. Which university was it?
Originally Dalhousie and moved on to British.
Pardon?
Originally Dalhousie,
Right.
Halifax.
Right. And he had a very nasty accident. So his backbone was broken into half, you know. So the doctors at first said that there is no hope for his survival. Even if he did, he could only, open his eyes and that's all. But with the grace of Allah, he started recovering. And I have been treating him homeopathically as well. But largely, I depend on prayers, of course. So, within a very short time, he started talking, he started getting up, he's now sitting on his wheelchair and moving about, back in his spirits, mashallah. And he also told me once on telephone that the legs are now beginning to respond to his call. And he can move his toes and also a little bit legs. Is that right?
That's right.
That's very good. Alhamdulillah. So yes, let's begin,
Yes,
please.
they would like to ask a few questions. Mr. Ibrahim, would you like to
Yes,
start?
Hazur, my question is on a topic very dear to me, which is a topic within the political world, and that is the situation in Ireland at the moment. As we know that right now the peace process is at a deadlock because of the loyalist people, the British government and the Irish governments, Sinn Féin and the IRA. They want the IRA to decommission the arms. My actual question is that there seems to be no trust between all of them right now.
Correct.
And I'm wondering would Islam's response or help, how could Islam help to prevent this deadlock?
You see, it's a very complicated question, in fact, because it deals with factors which naturally should not go together. If it was just a political dilemma, then through political means and political philosophy, this could be genuinely attempted to be resolved, and it shouldn't have been impossible. But when there is an unnatural wedlock with a different philosophy, then things become very much involved and complicated. That is why I believe that religion must not interfere with politics, and politics must not interfere with religion. When this happens, then it's not a question of resolving a problem, it's a question of undoing knots which go on re-knotting together, themselves. Because it is not just the politician with which the politicians have to deal with, they have to deal with the religious leaders, and on their ground, argument is not even welcome. You can't resolve the issue on the root levels of Catholicism versus
Catholic Church.
In Church of England,
Yeah.
is it? Or Protestantism?
Catholic Church, yeah.
No, is it Church of England in Ireland or Protestantism?
In the Republic it's Catholicism, and in the North it is the Church of England.
This one
Church
is
of
it.
England, yeah.
Church of England is slightly different from Protestantism. So I thought it was Church of England which
Right,
has
it
it
is
so.
Church of
Yes.
England, yeah.
And they have their roots on different soils as well. Catholicism is supported by ERA, the Southern Ireland, and the Church of England in Ireland is supported by Church in Britain. And they do not welcome any dialogue on religious basis. So people are divided apparently on the political plane, but they are divided on two different planes in fact. Sorry. And the leadership lies, split. In every case, you have to resolve a political problem, and then you have also to satisfy the religious leadership of that group, and vice versa. And when, unfortunately, religion is mixed with politics, it becomes the ugliest problem the humans can face. This is what has happened throughout history. This is what's happening in Ireland. So the question is, those people, if you look at the people who are leading these political religious movements, they're not religious in themselves. That again is a dilemma. There's a third problem. If they were religious, they would be believers in God. If they are believers in God, in whatever stamp of Christianity they are stamped with, they still believe in God. And they would fear wrath of God if they became unjust to others, if they become cruel to those who had committed no crime, and make them the target of their revenge. So the total lack of religion in a society which is religiously so dogmatic is the crux of the matter. So how can you resolve this from Islamic point of view, when unfortunately Islam is also subjected to the same problems by the hierarchy of Islamic religion in different sects in different countries? So the people who can teach them the truth clearly immediately become unpopular in such societies. That's again another problem. If a child refuses to be treated by a physician, and a physician becomes a source of horror for him, what can you do to that child? Except that you bind him hand and foot and force the medicine into him. There is no power here which can do that. That can happen only when secular revolutions take place in such societies. And then they take revenge against the religious orthodoxy and this and that, those rigid-minded peoples, and they pick up a fight like it happened in Turkey in the days of Kemal Atatürk. A political movement which has its roots in the common people, which is popular, is only, and which is secular, is the only right answer for such people who make their own people mad in the name of dogmas. Take your lesson from the history of Ataturk, Kemal Ataturk, or the period of Kemal Ataturk, I should say, or the period of Colonel Nasser's rise in Egypt. You see, what happens is simply this, that most often the platform on which religious extremists are supported, on which they stand, is largely the platform of illiterate common people. And it is the same platform which gives popularity and boost to such political leaders who could harangue with their view, ideas and sentiments and gather them around them. When such things happen, then religious sentiments cannot coexist with that, because basically the lowest rung of the society, the masses of the society, are neither truly religious nor truly political. They are fodder for the leadership, either religious or political, which you exploit them. So they can't be simultaneously exploited by two different ideologies. So if politically they have been exploited already, then the mullahs have, or the hierarchy of religion has left no power over them. They have no say. Nasser was openly critical of Islam. He was openly returning the Egyptian mind back to the pharaohs, across Hazrat Muhammad, across Moses, Jesus and Moses. Nobody minded. He was still the most popular hero because he knew how to gather masses, illiterate masses around him on an ideology of hatred of somebody. Now this is the last point which I want to bring to the notice, and through you to the notice of the whole British people. And the rest of the world, of course, it's a universal subject. Illiteracy is always exploited by hatred, and they offer themselves to be exploited by hatred far more than by love, because love requires hard work and sacrifice. Hatred requires the bloodshed of others, not of yourself. In the bargain, also your blood is shed in the streets, but that is not what you bargain for. You go for the hitting of others, and in return you also get hit, but that's not what you are aiming at. So everybody thinks it will be somebody else who will suffer. So the security of the unknown makes them brave to take up issues in which bloodshed must follow, always hoping for the other person's bloodshed, other party's bloodshed. So this is how the mutual infights in the people of a single one country begin to take place. Now they are always hatred-fed movements. Nasser drew their attention of the masses to the hatred of the foreigners, to the hatred of the French, to the hatred of the British. And as such, he became so powerful that no other hatred of a lower plane could shoulder this hatred out. It was right on the wheel, and it drove with full force and full individual decision making. But when the religious people take hold of the people's imagination and they are on the driving seat, then what they inculcate among the people is not love of God at all. Because when you call the people to love, they don't respond. They don't inculcate the higher messages superior messages of morality of any faith. They don't teach them that, from Christians' point of view, that look here, if a Catholic strikes you, oh Protestant or man of Church of England, on one cheek, always offer the other. If he grabs your shirt, give him your gown as well, or things like that. They never tell them this, because it goes their own interest of exploitation. Religions only permit you to exploit when you first distort religions or ignore religions and use only their names. That's all. So unfortunately, both these movements, such movements of popular leaders when they are created in countries, whether religious demigods or political dictators or popular leaders in the name of democracy who are practically dictators, they're always created through movements of hatred, never through movements of love. Once they're created through movements of love, those are the golden ages of those countries. Then things happen so beautiful, so wonderful, that the whole history looks back with wonder and, with praise of how that man, Sultan Nuruddin did this, and Sultan that did it. Even they're praised by the outsiders, erstwhile enemies, like Saladin. His movement was not based on hatred at all. It was the binding force of the Muslim through his love and courtesy, which also won him many a heart from among his enemies, political enemies. So that is a phenomenon which rarely happens, but always happens in the beginning of religions. When the founders of new religions come, then of course it always happens. But at what cost? At the cost of your own blood, your own honor, your own property, your own country. You have to be ready to be expatriated and thrown out of your country. So only deep-rooted faith in goodness can prepare people for such supreme sacrifices. And to expect masses of today, the materialist masses, it's impossible. No way can you bank on love. So the only available fuel is hatred, and this is what is happening in your country, unfortunately. It's very, very difficult problem. Very important problem. Right?
Yes, thank you. Jazakallah.
Please.
Your Holiness, I want to ask you a question. It's based on the fundamental of the evil angels. Within the Quran.
Evil angels?
Well, within the Quran, if I try and explain, Iblis and Satan are used separately.
Right.
They're two different
but
entities
don't
or
call
people.
Iblis an angel, that's what I meant.
Okay, yes. But within the Christian religion, it's played a lot upon on the fact that Satan, or Lucifer as they call him, has so much great power. So they actually believe, like for example, maybe that he has the power to create new religions. And I want you to maybe shed some light on the difference of Satan and Iblis and shed some light.
What you refer to as Lucifer,
Yeah.
that in fact is Iblis.
Yeah, exactly.
And what you referred as devil, that is Satan.
Okay.
Of Arabic or Satan in English, that's one and the same thing.
Yeah.
First of all, you should understand what these things are.
Yeah.
Satan is a wide word with so many connotations. Basically, the Holy Quran has defined it as a thing of fiery nature of rebellion, a thing which is destructive. So all that is the process which can be referred to as constructive processes of cohesion and building, that has been symbolized in the Holy Quran as things made of wet clay. See, wet clay is responsible for all growth, for growth of all life. If the clay is left dried out completely, life cannot exist there. And the influence of fire over wet clay is to dry it out of all moisture, with the result that whatever life existed before this would be completely destroyed. So the fight and the eternal fight between life and death is symbolized in the religion or religious books as devil and angel, godly and ungodly. So this question, although you did not particularly have in mind the question discussed before, is also directly related to it. There are two types of movements: some who feed on love, some who feed on hatred. So all those movements who feed on love are angelic movements, divine movements, godly movements. And all who feed on hatred are satanic movements. That is why in answer to God, when He's in the Holy Quran, also in the New Testament, things of similar effect are said. When God addresses Satan to bow to Adam, he refuses. He said, you made him out of wet clay and you made him out of fire. It is not for the fire to submit to the wet clay, it's inferior. So from then on, the fight begins. But the Holy Quran speaks of it symbolically. It doesn't mean that in one particular moment of time there was a dialogue between God and Satan. These dialogues are only symbolic, delivering eternal messages of universal ideological wars, universal struggle between life and death. When the struggle is made on the subhuman plane, then this struggle is through instinct, intuitive forces, but when it is done on human level, then it is on the conscious level. So reward comes into play, punishment comes into play. That is the philosophy, the background philosophy of Iblis or devil or Satan, whatever you may refer him to, versus angels, Adam, and the divinely appointed messengers of God. But what is the nature of this devil? Is he a personal thing or an impersonal thing? According to my study of the Quran and Hadith, number one, that Satan is in every man. It doesn't mean that a single Satan is ready to mislead every human being everywhere in the world at the same time. It is not possible, because he is not omnipresent like God. Only an omnipresent entity or unit or being can remain in contact with everything everywhere. Because like the radiation waves, they can remain in touch with you, me, everywhere, simultaneously. If they were conscious, then you could visualize God remaining in contact with everything everywhere and being conscious of what is happening everywhere. So at our plane, we can't visualize that higher form of existence. But Satan is not gifted with this quality of omnipresence and omniscience. So it has to be a different thing than one single Satan being ready to mislead people everywhere, all over the world in all ages. Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the holy founder of Islam, has resolved this issue for us in one area at least. At least we can now recognize Satan as one clearly defined thing. Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam once said that Satan runs in the blood of every human being. No exemption. No exception. Sahaba who heard this, the companions, they were amazed. He said, Ya Rasulullah, Prophet of Allah, do you mean every human being? He said, yes. In the blood of every human being. And the second question was, even in your blood? O Prophet of Allah? He said, yes. But no wonder, my Satan has become a Muslim. Now, where is that concept of one defined Satan who could never convert to truth and submission to Adam with reference to this hadith? It means you have to reconstruct the image of Satan in your mind, which tallies with the message of this hadith perfectly, is not contradictory to it. And I can understand it so easily. Every man knows it, that in him is inbuilt a tendency to evil, to defiance. There is no exception. And there is a continuous fight between this evil tendency and the other one which is good. Every morning you wake up and go on making decisions till you fall to sleep again. And inadvertently you also go on making decisions during your sleep, not being aware. There is no moment in human life when he does not find himself confronted with this and that, this and that. And every time there is one voice in him, it is easier, simple, it's more advantageous, get it. And the other voice says, no, don't do it. It's bad. So, as long as the voice of goodness continues to win, the voice of evil from within humans is weakened with the gradual defeat until the will is broken, until a new man emerges from that man who was constantly confronted with challenges of this or that, this or that. Mostly it is that, He's become good by nature. And goodness prevails in him, but not perfectly. Higher the challenges are, the more danger there is for him to fall to the evil instincts within him. It only depends on lowering the challenge or highering the threshold of challenge. Sometimes are not saleable for paltry prices, but when they are paid very high, then of course they succumb. And that is why one of the, I don't remember the name, but psychologist or philosopher said that only give me unlimited wealth to bribe anyone, but it should be unlimited. I can bribe anyone. I don't have trust in absolute morality. He did not have, because he did not know the prophets of God. The prophets of God rise to a level where they go beyond the reach of Satan. He can never make them submit to him. That exactly was the message given in the devil trying to bringing Jesus to trial on the mountain. That message, if correctly understood by Christians, would have put them on the right path where they could never have deviated from the path of unity of God. Could devil try God? It's impossible. It's just contradictory to the basic human sense that God could ever be tried by devil. While devil knows better than human beings that he is my master, he can't be tried. In case of Jesus, it is the devil who wants him to worship him. But even in response, Jesus doesn't say, no, I am God, worship me. So this episode, to me, is such a clear message of unity of God. Unfortunately, these people don't take the message, they don't understand. And the second message there is exactly what as I'm saying now, that the devils have no access to the divine servants of God, divinely appointed servants of God. They rise beyond. This is the meaning of their having become Muslims. They never raise their head, they never open their lips within you to coax you on to evil, and because they are completely frustrated and defeated. So when you rise above the challenges of sin to that degree, then you are chosen by God to become a symbol of innocence and a symbol of piety and trust for the rest of the mankind, and the prophets are chosen from among such people. On the head of these stood Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So that is why he didn't ordinarily tell people by himself. He was very modest and humble, and he didn't want to display his perfect innocence. But when it came to answering a specific question, he had to. So it must have been designed by God that he made that observation, and somebody asked this question and said, the devil is also within me, but he's become a Muslim. No fear from him. Literally, the Muslim means the one who has completely submitted and from whom nothing and none can have any fear. Right? There is another aspect of the devil.
Okay.
But then there is Mephistopheles or Iblis.
Yeah.
And you gave it another name, didn't you?
Lucifer.
Huh?
Christians call it.
Lucifer.
Yeah.
Lucifer is Iblis. So also Mephistopheles,
Yeah.
the one who tried Dr. Faustus in that great drama, a popular German drama, Dr. Faustus, who sold his soul for the sake of knowledge to Mephistopheles.
Yeah.
And from then on, there was just repentance and nothing could be done about it. So that devil is in fact personification of the evil spirit in man. That Iblis or Lucifer or Mephistopheles are the personifications of evil, as the holy prophets are personification of goodness. So each prophet of God becomes an Adam, a spiritual Adam. Each prophet of God is confronted with devil in running in the blood of a whole society. So it's a devil with so many children, and plus their leader or some leaders who become living images of devil, and as such they are personified as human things like Lucifer and so on.
Yeah.
So that devil appears and reappears and reappears. It's a continuous part. Like this morning I was discussing the issue of polarity with the visiting professor from Japan. He's very highly scholarly, very highly learned gentleman, and we're honored with his presence today, by his presence today here among us. I said that without polarization, you can't conceive of a single pole. It has to be on two sides. And if one pole appears, the other must raise its head. So you can see now very clearly that when the pole of a prophet appears, raises its head, or bows its head to God, and he raises the head again, then the opposite head raised in defiance of that pole is Iblis or Lucifer, whatever you may call it.
Yes, thank you.
Right?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
No, he's from Nigeria, but he is a born British subject now. And this is why his English was just as beautiful as any Englishman, educated Englishman's. Speaks excellent Southern English. And he became Ahmadi only recently, but he's so dedicated, like you. I'm so glad to see you sitting together. Ever since Ibrahim became an Ahmadi, there was no looking back. And so is he.
Yes, he's
He's my mentor.
He reminds me. He reminds me of me when 6 years ago.
Is he your spiritual child?
No. But I'm taking him under my
Your
wing while
mentor?
he's here.
Yes, that's right.
He's your mentor, I know. Yesterday you mentioned it, I had forgotten, I'm sorry.
Yes. Ibrahim.
You mentioned the name in a low tone, I missed it. I thought it was Ibrahim you
Yeah,
said.
Yes, that's right.
This is the man.
That's the man. That's the man.
He referred to you yesterday during his first meeting with me. I said, you seem to grow very fast in Islam and you're doing wonderful things. He said, thanks to Ibrahim Noonan, who's always taking care of me in that respect.
No, not just me on my own. There's been Zahid as well.
Of course,
We've been-
others, but he particularly mentioned you. Right?
Yes.
Good,
That's right.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
I have a friend who's interested in Islam, but she's also a nurse. She's a nurse, and she's interested in Islam. Also concerning the purdah aspect of nursing. We have to nurse men and women now. How do we put that
Right.
into perspective?
So what? What's the question then? If you have men nurses and women nurses,
Yeah.
what is the real problem?
About, do we wear the headscarf while we're at work or not?
How come? If that is what you mean,
Yeah.
I have already answered this question at various question associations, etc. The fact is that Islam is not a restrictive religion. It is a protective religion. So all its injunctions are based on this philosophy. It protects your rights, guards your good character, but does not restrict your movements unnecessarily without you gaining these objectives which I have mentioned. So, be it nursing or any other profession, women have equal right, like men, to not only gain their own personal interests, but to serve the interests of the society as such. So nobody should discourage women from participating, but on the understanding that Islam lays a great stress on the purity and honor of the society, integrity of the society. If permissiveness is permitted to run free in the society, then neither there is honor left, nor loyalty, nor integrity, and the homes begin to get broken. You see, there is no trust between husband and wife, daughter and mother, and so on and so forth, because the basic corrosive element is permissiveness, over-permissiveness. And permissiveness, even when you permit both sexes to meet freely, in schools, in colleges, in streets, and say, why shouldn't they do? It's quite natural. Once you accept it to be natural, then the consequences also naturally flow, and you can't stem them. You must be ready for all the consequences. If it is natural for the negative electricity to be jumped by the positive electricity, and you let it happen, it's quite natural. Then you should remove all insulations and then see what happens. So, natural, all right, no religion calls it unnatural. Because the religions recognize it to be natural, that is why there is no more need for disciplining. Because you are only afraid of misusage of natural forces. Other forces which are unnatural do not mean anything. Like magic doesn't mean anything. It's not taken seriously by any religion. But the flow of waters is the natural flow. You can't say because it is natural, so you should not create dams, you should not do this and you should not that. Let the water run naturally. So it's a very stupid idea, very, very naive logic, if at all logic, that because it is natural you shouldn't interfere. Interference is disciplining the forces and taking the best out of them. When you treat electricity as a natural force and discipline it, no eyebrows can be raised against that, because without it you cannot benefit from it. So human natural instincts are born with a purpose, and that purpose must be protected. If chaos is permitted to take place, then that purpose will ultimately suffer, and nature will react against this behavior, and the society will suffer. These are the overall considerations which make Islam instruct you on the areas of man-woman relationship. It is not restrictive. Remember again, it is protective. So during the nursing, you have to serve the cause of humanity, and because it is not a process of interference with the genuine causes, so you must wear a dress which does not hinder your professional proficiency. If you are in a burqa, in Pakistan for instance, clad in a burqa with only eyes getting out, or with a dress which is all over the place, how can you be a good nurse at all? You could be a source of danger to the patients you are tending. So as long as you are in that profession, actively engaged in the profession, you must do justice to the dictates of the profession, but never permitting you to exploit that freedom which is granted you just for the sake of a good cause. When you turn that freedom which is provided you for a good cause, for a bad cause, this is called exploitation. So with that in view, whatever dress is essential for a professional, he must wear it or she must wear it. But should, as I have already told you, be mindful of his or her responsibilities. Right? Yes, please.
Lately, cows started drinking milk. That prompted me to ask you a question.
You see, these are all gimmicks and stupid, expressions of cultism. They play on a society which already has become irreligious, which has become interested only in small magician-like tricks, and they don't pay homage to the serious message of religion, whereby they have to shape their own lives accordingly. They have to respond by changing their pattern of life and go through the difficulty of practicing things which are not easy for you to practice. Now, believing in a Devi or a statue of any sort, drinking milk does not cost you anything. Only it feeds your curiosity and your sense of believing in superstition and this and that. It becomes an interesting thing. Oh, wonderful. What it helps to do is to further create irresponsibility in your religious behavior. None challenged this. None went asked them, come on, we make a statue, you make it drink. Or let's break it and see what is inside. Such devices to be made nowadays is become so commonplace, Science is so advanced that if you say fiction pictures on television or anywhere, you'll be amazed at what man can do nowadays to deceive even the most expert or well-trained eye. And things can be made to appear which were never there. You know that the Jewish magician, whose name was, he made history a decade ago or so, about 2 decades, Uri.
Yeah.
Uri. What?
No.
Yes, Uri something?
No, Uri Kalhar, no.
I don't know about this. I'm not sure about the second part. Uri it was, all right.
Yeah.
He appeared on television and proved to the viewers in presence of physicists, professors of this and that he could bend a hard spoon with the slight touch of his finger. And later on investigations proved beyond a shadow of doubt that it was just a cheap trick, but so cleverly executed, so dexterously performed that nobody could notice, and the cameras didn't catch it either. But later on, when the analysts played the same film very, very slowly, you see, then they saw the trick, the moment of trick. How quickly, he replaced one spoon with the other, and it was not noticeable even to the observant eyes of scientists. So, for a trick like this, and such a cheap trick, it doesn't take much to produce it. And the people, all the newspapers doing it, fanning this stupidity and superstition, and helping only idolatry. Even young Muslim, all the Muslim newspapers of Pakistan, the country was so brags in its own dedication to the unity of God. They're all playing up this news, flashing it across. Humans in India are not fed with milk. Even the children die of lack of nutrition. So what a curse that is, if it is true. For the so-called gods deprive their creatures of the means of their livelihood, the very source of the energy which is already deficient in their country. So where will the poor children go in a country as poor as India if the statues of Devis begin to drink milk? You see, the milk in the first few days after this, the flash of this, whatever you call it, the word which comes to mind is rather too strong. I don't want to use it. But call it trickstery, cheap trickstery. When it was flashed, for 2-3 days, there was no milk available in shops for the human consumption. And they said everybody ran with milk to these Devis and there were temples. And how the custodians of those temples preserved this milk or did with it, I don't know. But human beings were deprived by the Devis for a while, and then it was relegated to the past and history, no more. And still you are interested, eh?
Yeah, no, Huzur, there was a program on Channel 4 lately where they found out that, there's Sai Baba
Yes.
was doing, they show it on film, how the trick he was doing
Yes,
it.
yes, I
And
know.
they didn't broadcast it in India. And the producer was saying, if only Sai Baba was only able to do food for India,
Yes.
all the people needing
That's right,
food,
yes.
they wouldn't do that. They will be doing
Sai Baba is very popular in Mauritius,
yeah.
in so many other countries. He is a sheer, this is Lucifer. I should have answered you straight away. Lucifer changes his names. Sometimes he appears as Sai Baba, sometimes as another Baba, one founder of a cult or another founder of cult, like the one who was confronted in America. Was it the same Sai Baba or somebody else who suddenly became popular and earned millions of dollars or billions and built a small estate there, a state-like estate but with state powers, and made fools of Americans all over so much. This shows the deeper truth within man. If man is not religious but is superstitious, then he is a fit fodder for all these things. But if he is religious, if he is really believer in God, nothing can touch him, either at the surface or deep within him. He is safe. He is beyond subjugation to man. All others are unsafe. So Lucifers appear and try them and make them fall.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
Yes, your turn.
Assalamu alaikum, Huzur. My question is from a friend of mine.
Yes.
He wants to know how religion needs to evolve with time to make itself more meaningful to whatever time it's in. For example, how is Ahmadiyyat and Islam different from, say, 100 years ago to today, and what challenges need to be anticipated for the future?
Now, do you call it a question which could be answered here in this forum when only 5 minutes are left?
I don't have the benefit of the clock, Huzur. So
You better give him certain books dealing with the subject at length and in depth. For example, a small effort was made by me to deal with the contemporary challenges, and that was what was the name? Islam's response to the contemporary issues. That's right. The professors are holding one in that. Give it to him to read. Then new questions will be born, and maybe those are the questions which I have not been able to answer before. It will help me to find out new questions and answer them anew, so that the new edition is richer than before. But I can't start, dictating this book all over again, can I?
no.
Thank you. Yes, please.
I have a question, Huzur. I don't know if it can be answered also in 5 minutes. Basically, it's
I think it's more than 5 minutes. I miscalculated because we didn't start on time.
That's right.
I was late. I was told that they will be ready 5 minutes later. So we have about 8 to 9 minutes left, right? Yes.
My question is based on an accusation, or a claim, I should say, from Christian historians, where they make this claim that Quranic texts were burnt. They mention quotations from Bukhari, and they
Quranic text were?
But the texts of the Quran were burnt at the time of Abu Bakr Uthman.
Right.
And I just wondered if you could shed light on this issue of this period of history, what actually happened.
This is not an allegation, as you rightly change your word. It's a fact of history which they try to distort and draw unjustified conclusions from that fact. But they are jealous always that Islam didn't take the same course as Christianity did, because of so many supposed texts of the Old Testament and New Testament running together until they became so proliferate that it was impossible to find out which was the right one and which was the wrong one. Even a comparative study, a Peshitta, for instance, is posing a grave problem, and a German scholar has dedicated his life to the study of Peshittas, and he brings out the contradictions between this and that and the reasons why it happened, and the reason why Peshitta in itself was created. It was created exactly for the same reason as they referred to at the time of Hazrat Usman. There were so many versions of the Bible, New Testament, that some scholar, and Peshitta in particularly, thought that it would mislead the people, it would create confusion. So he wrote one version out of that and burnt out, or with collusion with others, destroyed, in collusion with others, destroyed the rest. Now, I may have, made some mistakes here and there in relating the facts, because my study of Christian literature is not all fresh, but with reference to Peshitta, thing like that can be studied by anyone. Nobody can deny this. That during that period a debate raged, whereby nobody knew which Bible was the right one. There were so many possible versions. One was adopted, and that became the valid currency from then on. But that happened in one area, other things happened in other areas. Now, to save Islam from this dilemma, which was quite natural to expect under the circumstances which I am going to relate, God so designed, I am no doubt about it, it was not the human mind, that Usman saw the light very clearly and knew the dangers lying ahead. So what he did was, he did not destroy the various versions of the Quran, but he invited all the scholars, all the Muslim companions of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, who throughout were related with the task of preservation of the Quranic text. All of them. And collected all the material which was written down by various people here and there piecemeal. They said, this is what we heard from Rasulullah, this is the Quran. Now, amazing thing was that basically the text was the same, but versions varied from tribe to tribe, and the tribal usages of the Arabic words having the same meaning influenced or brought about a little change, and the memory also played a few tricks here and there. So if all that had been permitted to go on, that could create such split in the ideology of Islam based on the very Quran, which was claimed to have been protected by God. So this was one means, among others, by which Allah protected the Holy Quran. It was not his doing it like a Peshitta somebody, some man without an authority, some man without giving full exposure to the problem. This problem was given complete exposure, like never before a book has been so exposed to the study and critical study of all. So they all sat together, they discussed, they related when the Holy Prophet ﷺ had said this, and the change in the chronological order was only permitted when there were trustworthy witnesses, that Hazrat Muhammad ﷺ said that put that verse here and not there, put that surah here which is related in the beginning, that is at the end of the Quran, put that surah which is in the revealed in the middle of the history of revelation, in the very beginning, and so on and so forth. So all that scholarly work was essential for preservation of the Holy Quran. It was not an innovation in the Quran. It was not a change in the Quran. The entire effort was directed in the direction of saving the Quran from changes and innovations. So what is wrong with that? It makes it far more trustworthy than if it did not happen like that. All right? Thank you. Yes, 1 minute. And a question not like the earlier one, please.
Also, this one from a friend.
Please.
to know how far women in Islam can be allowed into politics. For example, you have in Pakistan and Bangladesh women prime ministers.
Yes.
We also have very strong fundamentalist movements. So how do the two equate?
You see, have you read the Quran?
I have read the Huzu, yes.
Don't you ever find mention of a queen of Sheba
We do, yes.
in the Quran?
We do.
Is there any censure in the Quran against her,
No.
against her rule, against her wisdom, against her qualities of political wisdom? Have you read any reference to that?
I have Huzu, but I think in this...
No, just a minute.
Okay.
Again, what you read there is exactly the opposite. The leaders, political and other leaders representing power, were making a wrong decision. It was the lady head of the state which rejected their decision and said, no, you're wrong. She says, I never go alone by naturally. I always consult you, and I'm consulting you, and I have consulted you, and I found you to be wrong, so I submit to Suleiman. This is in the best interest of the people. And it was she who was proved right. So where does the Holy Quran cast shadow of doubt on the superior wisdom, political wisdom of women in the Holy Quran? None, nowhere. Okay?
That's fine.
In religious leadership, we don't find any mention in the history of religion whereby a woman was entrusted with the hard task of leading a religion, because woman is vulnerable. She is weak. And also she needs to be protected in so many ways, even today in this society. Did you ever hear a case of, say, the extreme word is rape, of men by women? Never. But the opposite happens. So I had to use this crude word because to bring you the issue to light, to make you see the light of the day with reference to this issue. And women have to carry children in their bellies for 9 months or more. And they menstruate when they can't perform the offices. And so many other things which would make women overburdened beyond their natural capacity if God had made them religious leaders. Different issues altogether. This doesn't happen in political leadership. And God doesn't interfere there either. It's a choice. Let people do it as they please. Okay? Thank you. And I think this is really the time. Last minute is over, huh? Right. Okay, thank you very much. This time always passes very fast, you know. That has always been my problem. Okay, Sam, thank you very much.